Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending upon which part of the world you are all joining in. Thank you very much for joining. We are here on a fireside chat on automation and end user computing, and we have with us today Kulvinder Dosanjh, known as Kali in the industry. He's the group director and IT services delivery and BSO at BMI. With about 20 years of experience, Kali oversees client services, delivery, and internal global business operations. He leads a global team of infrastructure, workplace services, and manages risk governance and compliance at BMI Group. So welcome, Kali, today, and we have a whole lot of things to discuss today, right from different aspects of end user computing in your specific industry, which is manufacturing, also certain aspects on how there are these new ways of doing things there, how we look at IT security on certain areas, and really look at how the future of this entire thing would be. So before I go ahead, Kali, I want you to introduce yourself quickly, and then we'll get on to the main session.
No, thank you, Sir Joy. So I think it's good morning to you where you are, and good afternoon and good evening to people who are watching in on this. So thanks for the introduction. Name Kulvinder Dosanjh, as Sir Joy said. I'm known as Kali by everybody that interacts with me. You heard the word. I think a part of my role will be quite clear to everybody out there, which is basically IT operations. I'm the group director of IT service delivery. But Sujoy mentioned BISO. So let me just make clear what BISO is. A BISO stands for Business Information Security Officer. Our cyber capability is now centralized at our parent company. And I, as a BISO of BMI, ensure that my OpCo gets what it needs, in terms of security and also in the area of GRC, governance, risk and compliance. So instead of leading a huge team of cybersecurity, I ensure we get this from our central team. So that's the BISO part. If it's a fairly new role, and that's what BISO stands for. As Sergio says, background is I've been BMI. I've been since 2017, but I've actually been with the BM part for 20 years previous to that. So I've been in the industry, IT industries, for 24 years, and with what you could say the same organization, but it's evolved. And we've had many ownerships. My role's involved, so it's not one company. It has been a different company throughout that period. So yeah, that's me. Looking forward to the next half an hour or so, and hopefully some interaction. And yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Kali. It's always interesting to see how roles have transformed and the time you spend in an organization, which again transforms to be a different organization over a period of time. It's always interesting to see how those transformations have happened, and you've seen it all. And I don't really have to say starting from DOS, but then yeah, I know you've seen a whole lot there. So let me probably start this today's discussion with a little bit of facts which we keep hearing all over the industry. So one of the things which I was reading some time back, which actually said that about 50% of the activities which end users do today would actually be automated in the coming years. And this coming years is not a horizon of like 20 years. It's about in the coming few years, we'll see that it's all going to get automated. So that's got both sides of it, which is very interesting because each industry adopts it very differently. Right. And also there is another fact, which is more of an underlying fact, which says that about 45% of the work people do today can be automated. So each one of them actually blends into each other. Now, having talked about automation, it's always interesting to understand how automation has evolved when we look at the manufacturing industry, because there is a pace at which every industry adopts a particular technology or an automation. So how do you see that manufacturing industry has seen this in the past? And when we look at it, it's obviously there are multiple parts to it, but converging into how the end users have seen it and how they have also started focusing on it. So it'll be nice to hear your views on this, Kali.
Yeah, I mean, there's three parts to this for me. The first is the prerequisites for automation, let's say, and also there's a back-end automation and the front-end user automation, and I would say the user is probably the last one in that value chain. There's a lot of things to do before we can get the value to the end user up front. But for us as an organization, you know, when you come together as two separate organizations, one of the prerequisites is really it's when you got such a dispersed, geographically dispersed, you know, we have a myriad of applications and platforms, and our state was quite dispersed when we came together. It was really trying to put an automation layer on that, any type of automation layer, be an RPA from within a business process to anything within IT, it's very difficult. There's some prerequisites to do. There's consolidation to do. That's really trying to bring the estate into a fit for purpose, where you can put that layer of automation across the top. And also, automation for me comes in 3 blocks. You know, it's about prevention, it's about self-healing, and then it's about self-serve, which the customer does. And that prevention is where the value gets added. And the prevention on a simplified, consolidated estate is a lot easier. You know, maybe the whole state doesn't get consolidated. Maybe there's areas and you could drive automation quick in certain areas. So I'm not saying please think about don't do automation, but you do need that level of prerequisites you need to hit. So as you said, you know, started in '97 and IT was the world was going to end in 2000, if you remember. You know, I think as IT professionals told everybody the world was going to end, and I think that was a way to get pay rises more than anything else. But we survived that. And there's been a huge change. At that time, I could think of areas of our business where IT did not touch. I struggle to see that today. Everywhere, and everywhere within the plant, within the factory, even to the point of raw materials being ordered and delivered into our sites, IT touches it right through to, you know, selling the product, sending invoice and collecting money in. It's underpinned, the business underpinned virtually end to end by IT. And automation going forward has a huge part to play and do that effectively, efficiently, and quickly. In IT, working in a manufacturing organization, my goal is to make sure my customers, the IT users, are the most effective they can be in the tools we provide them to then give the service to our users, so the ones that generate and keep this business alive. They're the ones we sell. So we've seen a whole uplift in the technologies, in the plans, in terms of measuring, collecting data, and then the automation of that. Instead of needing lots of people and lots of man hours, it's using technology to understand your data and get the insights you need to drive your decisions. So a lot of things happen on that front. We're now starting to see benefits we can bring to the end user, and at the moment, for us, it's all about the way we deliver and the way they consume IT, rather than being too much on the business side. But we're moving forward in that area as well. So yeah, a huge amount of change. But we're now at a point, I think quite a key inflection point, where IT needs to start driving the value of automation. And like I said, through prevention, which to me is my preferred option, is try and prevent things, be aware, you know, through collecting data, being able to act and seeing something coming. It's having that insight through to, if you can't prevent and you don't see it, are we able to self-heal it without the user feeling this? So when they log on a Monday morning, you know, they don't know what's gone on necessarily, but they're able to hit the ground running. Through to, you know, and we'll talk about this later, you know, our users want to consume more data. They want to be self-sufficient. They want to be more effective themselves and being able to, you know, self-heal themselves and self-serve themselves.
Yeah. And Kali, I think now it's very interesting how you divide into 3 parts. You know, there's the business part, then there's the IT, you know, the teams which are delivering these services, and the end user side of it. And end of the day, you are absolutely right. Whatever you do here on the IT side, the consumers, which are to us the end business users, actually have to be more effective, more productive, and you have to ensure that now they are saving time, they are saving their efforts using automation. And if you're not able to do that, all the efforts, all the tool really doesn't, you know, pay anything back. Yeah. So I agree. So also you also talked about a whole lot of, you know, so there's the back end, there's the prevention, there is the end user, and what also happens when you talk about the self-heals and, you know, self-service and all of that, there's a humongous amount of data which starts getting, you know, generated. And humanly, it becomes impossible for anybody to really say that, oh, so I know what is going on this device, I know what is going on that device, let me go and do this. So humanly, it becomes very, very, very difficult. And that's where we had been seeing in the industry that artificial intelligence, the AI pieces are coming in and playing a really, really very big role. And this AI pieces, really get to the next level where you are able to get insights onto the device levels, and then they're able to help you make those decisions or get the work done. So how is that working for you? Have you already taken that journey? Are you on that path? Or just to understand first your view, and then how's working for you?
Yeah, look, we're starting tomorrow. Look, nothing's going to get done tomorrow. It is a journey, and as you know, ITC are one of the companies we're partnering with in that. You're absolutely right. The amount of data we can collect is huge. So I see us getting to a point where we're collecting data. It's almost feeding it into a funnel, and out the bottom of the funnel, there may be two entry points. There may be proactive prevention and self-healing, or there may be self-serve. Or there may be a task list for the engineers and the technicians or the service desk, the L1s in the background to follow up on. But at the moment, we try to digest that data, and we're not very proactive in that. And the technicians waste a lot of time digesting the data to try and get to a point. And I think that's where automation can add the value, whereby, through automation and adding an AI layer and learning as we go along, whereby we funnel in the data we get from let's take just a simple example of the end user device. Imagine collecting data, feeding it, automating it to a point where, we're checking the health of the PC. Everybody's connected all the time. The PC is on all the time. I don't know about you. When I'm working from home, I'm sitting on the dinner table, the PC pings, I just get up and have a look at it. So I'm always connected. At that point, we can collect data. We can prevent things from happening. So a user logs in on a Monday morning, and they wouldn't know, or maybe they get a summary of what's been happening, what's been prevented, what's been fixed. But also an output has been for a technician to be following up with things, and in the background fixing things for the user. So it's coming together. We're bringing those skills in with our partners. We're looking at the value chain and where to concentrate on this. We're going because I want to talk about the human part of this, because you're serving humans end of the day, and I think we'll talk about it later in the chat. But that's why I see, that's where we are now. It's about collecting that data and using the automation layer to help us to analyze that data and understand the data we're getting and the actions we need to take and how we can add the value to the end user.
No, I think you're right. So when you talked about that summarized view on a user screen, it's very interesting because what happens is we all invest so much on technology platforms and from a IT perspective, but then it's very difficult to really connect it back and say, how is my productivity getting better? How do I actually measure that experience which is getting better? So having that connectivity between all these investments which we are making, how these automation AI engines are helping you to increase productivity, how they're really helping you to take it to the next level from a experience level is also very, very important. So from your perspective, while we are on this particular AI bit, experience, how do you see end user experience here?
Well, it's going to improve. That's the whole point of doing this. We're a manufacturing organization, as I keep saying. We're making a product, we're selling a product. IT is a byproduct of what they have to use to be able to do that job. So we need to be, to the point, I think ITC, I run the service desk through you and other services. And one of the most interesting conversations I had, which I think you guys were surprised with, I've got SLAs for the background measurements, but we talked about CXLAs. We really are now measuring the customer experience. So it's all about the value to the customer experience and making them more productive, making them less time spending on, their devices being down, and really adding the value to the business and delivering what they've been employed to do. So it's really key now where, I've got no excuse to say, look, the background's, kind of quite dispersed. We're trying to bring that together. We're getting consolidated. Now's the time to start adding the value to the front end and considering the customer experience. Even if I've got 3 or 4 partners within a process and everything's green, it doesn't mean I get my users getting good experience. So we're working closely with our users. Our C stats are very key to us. And these CXLAs, these customer experience LAs, are really what we're using to drive that customer experience, to spend less time on fixing PCs and more time on delivering the value and doing the role they're doing. And that's the journey we're kind of just starting on now.
Excellent. And I think this is something which we which we hear very less from many of the IT folks, is now they're all very focused on SLAs. But now when we start looking at the business side of it and say, how we look at experiences, it becomes absolutely important. So thank you so much for that. I think that's a very, very interesting, a way of looking at it. So while we are on this chat, I would also request, a lot of our users or viewers who are actually on this session today to please post their, questions as comments, and we'll take it up, at the relevant points during this discussion. So I think you talked about self-healing, you talked about the AI, you also talked about self-service. And what we always see, Kali, is when and this is more from and I'm just trying to take a IT view of this, that when we start opening too many things from the self-service perspective, we see there's always a concern which starts coming up saying, I have empowered the users so much, and are we secure enough? Are we really making sure that no, the security is not being compromised, because people start doing things on their own ways. And and you being a BSO, I'm sure that striking that balance is even more difficult for you. So how do you really look at it, and how do you really run this?
Yeah, I mean, let me just give a stat which will kind of bring context to the discussion. We as a manufacturing sector was just a couple of years ago number 7 on the list of sectors that were being infected by phishing or ransomware or being targeted. Manufacturing is now at number 2. I think the other sectors have upped their game. The financial sector, the service sectors, and we're probably seen as more of an easy target. The balance we have to strike, and this is key, is and it's a discussion I have often, is that level of security we need to bring in needs to be at the right level. And what I mean by that is we're trying to protect the organization. If we overdo it and we stop the organization from being able to do business, we don't need security because we won't have a business left. So it's about finding that balance. However, security being part of our remit, one of the things that's incumbent on me is to show the risks that are increasing out there to our business. We're seeing it every day. So we're bringing data back to the business. And the levels of security now are higher than they've ever been in the manufacturing organization or that I've experienced. And it's agreeing with the business, what is that right level for us? Because we can't stop the business from working. We can keep saying we're making you secure, but we're making them so secure that they can't do business. Then, as I said just earlier, we will have no business left. So it's a question of working together with the business. And also is having a team, having a capability that really can help in that conversation. So we now have this central team, and the capability is of a level which can really make us secure, work with the business, and adapt to what's required by the business, while still making sure that all the risks that are increasing out there, will carry on increasing, but we can mitigate, we can reduce the probability, and we can use the impact. So there's 3 key things that I always say, which is be secure, be vigilant, and be resilient. And what I mean by them is the be secure is having a risk-based approach. You're not going to be able to do everything. Based on risk, every corporate has a compliance committee or risk committee. Is to work and make the business understand and work with them and deliver the level of security that fits what's needed here, but mitigates you from the risk. Look at the probability of a risk happening. And what can you do? Be it investment, be it process change, be it bringing in automation that can drive that probability of something happening down. And third, how can you mitigate, or you can't always mitigate the full risk, but how can you make the impact of the risk less as well? So they're all kind of things you've got to get better at, because you can't lock everything down too much at the top layer. So it's a key part. It's absolutely a key part, and it's as security professionals having the capability and making the business understand what you're trying to say to them, but finding the right level you need to bring in.
Great. No, I think it's always striking that right balance, I would say, because it's very easy to say lock all your doors and you're secure, but no, how do you go out? How do people come in? So no, security has always been like that. So I've got a very interesting question here, and I'll probably try to put it with my next question. I think that'll answer it in some fashion. So what I in my last talk, I remember we talked about something very interesting, which was what we said was there's something which has been going on, which is called forced adoption. A lot of people don't like that word, but then what really has happened is that over the last a year or so, and we're not using some terms here, and I will avoid that last 1 year, 1.5 year terms. But then during this last 1.5 years, what we've seen is that we had seen three type of users in our ecosystem, and for the ease of understanding, I'll just call it Gen X, Y, and Z. But then between all these type of three users, there's some who were very happy to say, oh, I have something to adopt. Oh, this is great stuff. There was another section which said, okay, let me try, let me see how I can use this. And they also started using. And there was another section who didn't have an option, and they said, this is what you have, please use it, right? And that's what we said. And this coming back from my last discussion with Sabu from South Africa, where we discussed about this forced adoption as a point. What do you really believe? Do you think that, because manufacturing industry is always looked at a little differently, so do you think that once we are able to, once we come out of these woods which we are in currently, will this forced adoption go away? Will people again start asking people to come to the desk and start fixing it? And I'm just trying to link it to something, some question which we have here. How does those technology pieces, whether we talk about the toolkits which we bring in, are tools enough for doing this? So what we can add to this whole scenario of adoption as such to make sure automation takes the next level in terms of the users using it. So Kali, I know you are smiling all the way, so I'm sure
I'm
you've
trying
got
to take some notes. There was a lot of questions there, but no. Look, I think this is a crux of the matter, and I mentioned human beings to you earlier on. I think we all recognise Gen X, Y, and Z. Gen X. The millennials are increasing. We're 21 years into this millennium. We got a workforce from the age of 18, 21 that is growing. We've got a workforce that wants to be more agile. A Harvard study recently showed that 4 in 5 of users don't want to come back to the office full time. They don't feel they need to. So that in itself creates challenge for us, and automation will play an absolutely massive part in this. Also, I don't like the word forced adoption. If a user comes to say this is forced adoption, I think you need to look at yourselves and your change management process and your communication. A good change management process underpins everything. If somebody's being forced, that means the awareness was not there. You've got to bring the customer, especially in the manufacturing organization. If you've got Gen X and Gen Y and Gen X, and you're delivering something, say, right, this is what you now need to use. As part of change, part of the, where was the comms, where was raising the awareness, where was actually the consultation with your customers? Because you're delivering them something they need to do. So have you showed them the value of this? Because some of them, especially the Gen Z, as we talked about, will be used to pressing this button after then that button next. It's not that bad, but I think you get what I'm saying. So change management is key to this, because you're dealing with humans at the end of the day, and it's all about adoption. Now, one way people say you're forcing adoption is you take the options away, and I think that's absolutely right. I mean, why would you introduce something and still leave the old options in place? Because they'll carry on using that. So that's one element to it. Adoption is key. Take away the options. You're adopting something new. You're putting something new in because that is what you have told the business. You showed the value of that. They're willing to invest in it, and now you need to make sure your users are consuming that to make sure the value is being delivered that you've promised. So it's all around change management. You've got to bring your customers along the journey, make them feel part of this. And you've got to understand or make them understand the value of what you're doing for them.
Yeah, on that point, I think, what we have seen is, and this is, a little contradictory, because the same people, and I'm not pointing to any gen here, all of us, when we are, working from homes, we are doing things on our own. We don't mind using them. We don't mind, clicking buttons here, doing things on our own. We don't call up a email service which we use at home to say reset my passwords, to do whatever other activity, to even install a software on your on your tablets or on your devices, right? But as soon as we step back into the office, it becomes very, very different. So my belief always had been that most of the organization who bring in a new system, they're not able to really get it at the same level of ease of things, and that's why the adoption really fails. And going back to one of the questions which we had, why does this really work out in that fashion? We believe that the reason why just bringing in technology doesn't help is also, like Kali, you just talked about, having the entire chain management done very well, making sure the communications are very well done, and making sure it is made easy enough for people to adopt, and they're not really trying to do something new. So one of the beliefs we have at ITC is, if I introduce a new way of working and you have to give a training for that, you've already lost it, because that means that there's something which is fundamentally not right in terms of user to adopt it and start running with it. So that's how I look at that, that particular question which came up, and I thought, no, that would be interesting to put a viewpoint. But Kali, you want to add to that?
No, I tell you, look, they have to be intuitive. If they're not automated, where the process takes care, or where the automation takes care of a task, then it has to be intuitive. It has to be easy to use. And you're absolutely right. If these people can do something in their own personal environment, say, they've had an issue at home, and they're using solutions which are intuitive, they're able to use. We need to mimic that. We can't be introducing where, I kind of 90% agree with you. Where if you're having to train, you've lost, you've already kind of lost it. But I think in some areas we may still be there where we need to train them. But as long as it's still intuitive and it's easy to use and easy to follow. And to be honest with you, that's what you need to see. I mean, why would you introduce anything that's more complicated than what they're doing now? Unless the benefits are so much huger. But I can't see that. I've not seen any kind of automation recently which is more complicated than what is done in a more complicated way than the way the users do it now. So the development, and I think earlier one of the questions was around, the capabilities out there, is the applications and the other tools. They are making it more intuitive. They're making it easier not only to set the automation up and introduce AI into that, they're actually making it easy to use, and the outputs are clearer as well. So the whole tool set around automation is getting easier, which is then making the outcome to the end user more intuitive, and pretty much the automation is doing most of the job for them. So totally agree. It has to. We have to make life easy for our users, because we can.
Yeah, and I think some of the questions coming around here are around work from home in the manufacturing industry. What balance are you able to strike? And again, I'm referring back to the earlier fireside chat I had. Subbu talked about this. Said that it has been very, very different when people are working from home. Suddenly they have seen the productivity has gone higher, and people's behavior towards work had also changed. Now, always there's a plus and minus, there's a balance, but then I think this talk is around Kali, your viewpoint. So let's hear it from you as to how you look at some of the things around the manufacturing industry, talking about work from home, and how much and what balance do you really strike there?
Yeah, I mean, look, we didn't want to make this about COVID and pandemic, which I understand, but I think the pandemic has accelerated the need to do something here. I think the agile working, the automation, it was always coming. I think what's happened over the last 18 months is just we now need to react quicker to that. We are going to have agile workforce going forward. As I said, the Harvard studies show that 4 out of 5 don't feel they need to come into the office full time. So we need to make sure we do that. We need to have the tools in place whereby we're not getting people to log in via VPN. We can connect to them across the web. So we as a support function and an enabling function have to make sure we have those in place for these users. But the users being at home, we had a very kind of old way of working in many of our countries, which was people still wanted to pick the phone up and have somebody run with a toolkit and their hammer and oil can and come and fix things. But in the last 18 months, they've not had that, but they've coped. We have we introduced ServiceNow. We've translated into local languages. We have self-serve in there. We have chatbots, which allows you to self-heal yourself or self-serve yourselves. And we're just helping the customer on that journey. So we've actually taken, none of us would want the pandemic to happen, but we've taken advantage of what that situation has brought to us to show the users you can adopt this. Some of it is about giving the user the confidence that this is, especially the Gen Y, Gen X mainly, and blue collar workers. And it's working. We're seeing the results. One of the key things we're starting to do is we're starting to take email addresses away and phone numbers away, and drive them through the portal, drive them through chatbots. And we're managing that through looking at the adoption rates of that, because that is the key to your success. Is, are these new ways being adopted? Because that's the guys who are listening to me and willing to invest, is my biggest stat I can show them is, look, this has worked, because look at the adoption. Within the first 3 months, we are now 80% going through these automated channels. We've dropped two email addresses. We dropped three languages on the service desk. So yeah, it's a key part of this. And again, the human side, those users have a huge part to play in this. And our part is to make sure they're aware. You bring them on the journey and they understand what you're doing and the benefits to them. And if you need to, yes, you train. You want to make it intuitive, but if you need to give them additional support, you do that. Because you've got to make, and you've got to make that, you've got to give them that support. Otherwise, you're not going to get the adoption rates you need. Productivity is going to go down instead of up.
I absolutely agree. I think we're now around that towards our end of our session, but this is now something which we really want to hear, and I think most of the audience which we have today would like to hear it from you, Kali, because industry leaders like yourselves who spend so much time here had seen multiple waves of, whether it's technology, whether it's various things which came and went out, and now you saw how certain things were so hyped up in the industry, but then it just fizzled out. So how do you really see this, this entire automation? And I'm keeping this at a slightly higher level and trying to connect it with your three buckets which you talked about. You talked about the business, the IT, and the users. How do you really see the future of this shaping up? I know it's like giving you a canvas to say, how do you want to really paint? I know, how do you want to have your this be painted on a canvas? So let's hear it from you as to what your thoughts are.
I'll try and do this without coming across too crazy, because I have some great dreams to make life easier. But let me give you three lenses. Let's start with the user lens. As I said to you, you're connected all the time. The devices you're using, you're connected all the time. The users generally have 2 or 3 devices. They're online, they're connected. That prevention part, again, if the user doesn't know, or the user logs on a Monday morning and sees a summary of everything that's kind of taken place and got them to a point where they're just working, they're hitting the ground running on Monday morning, not ringing up with an issue, not spending the first 2 hours on a Monday morning with an issue, or generally the bigger time when they've come back off holiday and they've forgotten everything. How can we manage with the data we can collect with this online connected world now that helps a prevention before something happens, and we know the health of the devices are key to this, and it's not just the users' PCs, it's also our estate, it's our servers, the applications that sit on it, the cloud services and the VMs we set up. So the user perspective is if they're interacting less with the service desk, or they're having to do less for healing, that's to me a good thing, and automation will help in that area. They just should hit the ground running on a Monday morning. If every user never has to make a call on a Monday morning to a service desk because they've got an issue, that's my nirvana for them, because we've dealt with it somehow in the background. Then let's take the business view, because this is key for me. We're a manufacturing organization, and I have to, I have to almost earn the right to be having the discussions and show that I'm adding value. In some traditional in sectors, maybe manufacturing one, and IT was seen more of a necessarily evil and a cost. But we need to have those conversations around the value, and it's been an enabling function for the business. So when we're showing the data points to our senior leadership teams, and we're asking for the investment, it's always to circle back and make sure we've delivered what we said. It's been adopted and it's delivered what is said. So from a business point of view, it's about, yes, we can invest, but long as it delivers the value that you promised us, they'd be happy, no problem. And for me, and for IT is, I don't want to say we would just sit there in the middle with hardly anything to do, but it's really to be more focused on the value businesses, value add activities. Like I said to you, if we're collecting data, we can prevent, but some of it may be pushed through into a task list for technicians. So instead of coming on taking calls, they actually have data-driven tasks to do, which will add the value to fix things or make things better. So you're utilizing their time better in delivering what they're good at, which is the technical aspects and fixing things, instead of taking calls and trying to explain to users to do things. So the user part is, they literally know nothing is going on. We're in control. We're using the data we collect from their devices, and we're preventing, but we're also able to self-heal and making them self-serve. From a business perspective, we're adding the value to the business. The investments they're making, which are tough to make in tough times, there's a real value seen to that. It's take the users away from dealing with IT issues, that they can do their job, increase their productivity, to deliver their job. And for me, it's really continue on the automation journey, because I think that's where it lies. And embedding AI in, where that automation, using AI really becomes a value add to the user, it makes them more effective and use less of their time to fix issues. And that then flows down to my backend team, to our server environment, to our state environment, to the application layer, so we run more efficiently and consistently.
And I think, Khalid, now you said it pretty lightly on the first part, but we fail to understand how big that impact is when you look at any data analysis for any of the service desks. Everybody would say that the maximum calls which we receive are on Monday morning, right? And if I'm able to cut that out, what you're actually doing is, it's not only about those calls which are going to the service desk, but if you start multiplying that productivity parameters, you'll be quite shocked, because it's not that as a user I spend 10 minutes with the service desk. Please understand that the person from the service desk who's also spent 10 minutes with me, so that makes it 20, and then that ticket goes somewhere else, that makes it 30, 40. So on a Monday morning, really, which we say the Monday morning blues, we really see that the productivity loss which we are actually doing in the first 4 hours is absolutely chaotic. So I agree, if we can really pinpoint there and make sense of that entire thing, life would be very different. So what I can say is, I think we are trying to get to that journey together, and to make sure that as an organization you see those things coming up, and the picture you just painted, we are able to deliver that very quickly. But at the same time, I think you are absolutely right. The way IT has to change that entire balance of those tings and tongs happening all through the weekends and things like that. So I absolutely agree to that. And I think we had time for this today. We're just short above the time which we have here. But then, we would really, first of all, like to thank all the people who have joined us on this session today. Really appreciate your, the comments which are coming in. And thank you so much for those questions which are there. Thanks to you, Kali. Really appreciate you taking out time to do this with us. It's always so interesting to talk on these subjects and have a different viewpoint every time we engage on something like this. And to our viewers, I would like to say that if you want to hear some more similar chats or different topics or subjects, please do post for us, and then we would bring those new pointers and have our speakers in here who would be able to really help us to take this discussion forward. So thank you so much, everyone, to join here. And thank you so much, Kali, for having this session with us. Thank you.
No, thanks very much, me. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.